My dear, what if I told you that this world we live in is ruled by a group of advanced alien reptiles? Advanced how, Abu Hamid? Do they dance like this? My dear, reptiles are originally from space. Okay, that makes sense. Why, Abu Hamid? Reptiles crawl. What makes them fly? I mean, I'm telling you that the world is ruled by reptilian aliens. Aliens meaning they come from space. So you might think that their scary appearance would make them easy to recognize. But for example, what if I told you they're shapeshifters who have the ability to transform into humans? Oh my God, Abu Hamid, and not just any humans, my dear. They disguise themselves as very important figures and politicians like Biden and Obama, and even celebrities with millions of followers like Beyonce and Tom Cruise. That's some serious disguise. And of course, this disguise serves only one purpose, to rule and control humanity. God protect us. Maybe, my dear, you think you accidentally started an episode of Black Mirror, or opened a book by Anis Mansour, or a sci-fi movie with a 5.8 out of 10 rating on IMDb. But let me tell you, this is a theory with followers, preachers, and books. In 1998, the British author David Icke published the book The Biggest Secret. This is the book that explains the reptilian alien theory with evidence and proofs. My dear, the book has more than 500 pages. Abu Hamid, it's clear this guy is a fraud. No one bought the book and no one believed him. The interesting thing, my dear, this theory that you don't like, according to an official survey conducted in 2013, is believed by 12 million people. Wow, 12 million people in the United States alone, so far I mean. That's a number that exceeds the population of countries like Belgium and Sweden. 12 million people believe that the world is actually ruled by cockroaches from outer space. This theory is just one of dozens, maybe even hundreds of what many scientists call conspiracy theories. These are the kinds of theories we see with paranormal researchers, like the idea that the Earth is flat, not round, and that humans never landed on the moon in '69, and that there are alien entities in Ain Shams behind the ice wall near the metro, something like that. The internet actually ceased to exist in 2016. And all the interaction you see now is just bots or robots pretending to be humans, liking, subscribing, and acting as if they're real people. You might even find robots that simplify science and show up for you every Saturday and Tuesday. Oh, there's no way that could be a robot, honestly. Excuse me, but the theories you're talking about, are they astronomical, electronic, or related to any topic in the world? My dear, a conspiracy theory can revolve around any subject, whether it's space or the internet. The right approach is not just to look at the topic, but also at its characteristics. Let's define conspiracy theory according to the Encyclopedia Britannica. A conspiracy theory is an attempt to explain any event, especially if it's a tragic event, considering it the result of deliberate actions by a small group of people characterized by what? By power and authority, and of course to achieve a specific goal. I have a better explanation for what happened. For example, my dear, a frightening event like the coronavirus, here the first condition is met, a tragic event. Think conspiracy theorists will just accept that? No, they want more. It spread from China worldwide. This story is boring. I don't care for this. I have a better part. I have a more logical explanation for what's happening. And here we move to the second person. People with power and authority. One of the most famous conspiracy theories explaining the coronavirus is that a man with great power, great authority, and great wealth named Bill Gates is the one behind the coronavirus. So we've fulfilled the first two conditions. Now the third condition remains the motive. According to this theory, everyone who got the vaccine had tracking chips implanted in the injection, allowing Bill Gates to monitor the movements and activities of millions of people, including you even when you're just playing in your room. This way, Bill Gates can know all your calls, all your secrets, and all your embarrassing moments. So, my dear, now we have a complete conspiracy theory. There are people with authority involved. A secret goal. Abu Hamid, if you can't find a goal, bring Marwan. Congratulations, my dear. Now you have a conspiracy theory. Keep in mind, my dear, that conspiracy theories don't have to be complicated. And we don't need to write 500-page books about them, like the theory of alien coasts ruling the world, or a huge global event like COVID. It could also just be a simple theory that explains why your favorite team lost. We're not going to talk about anyone in particular, or the death of an actor in the prime of his youth. You might be looking for that t-shirt you swear to your mother you can't find, and then she comes and finds it. Could it be that my mom is part of a conspiracy and was born beyond the ice wall? And my dad turned out to be a shapeshifter and was originally a Fiat car. This explanation is always linked to a powerful, controlling group lurking in the shadows that no one can expose. Also, a conspiracy theory doesn't have to be new. For example, many people consider the current century, the 21st century, to be the age of conspiracy. And that's because of the internet and the information revolution, which have caused these conspiracy theories to increase and gain more followers. However, according to a 2022 study titled "Have Beliefs in Conspiracy Theories Increased Over Time?", there is no reliable link between the increase in belief in these theories or even their number and the current era. Conspiracy theories have been around since the famous Great Fire of Rome in 19 AD, which was explained by a conspiracy theory claiming that Nero himself set Rome on fire, even though there is no historical evidence for this. So, after 2,000 years, and according to some conspiracy theories, it's explained as something made by America or China or Bill Gates, as I told you. As for understanding and categorizing these conspiracy theories, that's a question that has puzzled scientists. For example, the scientist Michael J. Wood, in a study titled Beliefs in Contradictory Conspiracy Theories, found that some people don't just believe in conspiracy theories about a particular topic. No, they might actually believe in both the theory and its opposite. For instance, someone might believe that Princess Diana's death was intentional and orchestrated, and at the same time believe that she's still alive and that her death was faked. Or, according to a 2020 study, those who believe that COVID-19 is a biological weapon made in China are more likely to accept the idea that America is responsible for releasing it. Scientists found that understanding conspiracy theories doesn't depend on you standing in front of the theory and trying to make sense of it. The content doesn't matter, because as you've seen, the content itself can be flimsy. But the solution here is to study the believers in these theories, because they are the only constant factor. Theories come and go, things change and evolve, but there are always people who believe in conspiracy theories. So let's try to understand who these people are. You might think that those who believe in the reptilian alien theory or the COVID conspiracy are simple-minded or mentally ill. But according to a study conducted in 2023 that analyzed data from 158,000 participants from the US, UK, and Poland. According to the study, the psychological profile of these individuals is very complex. A person who believes in conspiracy theories tends to be insecure and withdrawn, not feeling safe in their own society. That's why their belief in the theory is so strong, because it gives them a sense of control in a society where they don't feel safe or feel like they have any control inside themselves. Researcher Rob Bradburn says that conspiracy theories are simply an attempt by an anxious mind to find meaning in all the chaos around it, to latch onto a recurring pattern. So, in a way, this gives them a sense that there is some order. An idea is starting to become clear. All of this, my dear, even if it's wrong, is still easier for a person to accept than for things to happen without any explanation or order. People who believe in conspiracy theories are convinced by just one theory. Why are they convinced by theories that are not only different, but sometimes even contradict each other? Why do certain topics generate successful and popular theories while other topics pass by without leaving any trace? Why did 12 million people believe that there are alien reptiles controlling the world? The reason, my dear, is simply a good, different, and strange story. Imagine if I told you that America rules the world. What's that? Well, that's common knowledge. That's an ongoing situation. What's different about that? News reports constantly claim America rules the world, with China or Russia challenging that. That's expected. But show me galactic creatures, reptilian invaders. Now that's interesting. That's an alien movie. This story about reptiles is very similar to one of the oldest stories in human heritage. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which tells the story of the hero Gilgamesh, king of the city of Uruk, who faces terrifying monsters that threaten his rule, and which researchers consider to be the first hero story in human history. And on its template, the epics of Hercules and Achilles were written. Gilgamesh, the king of the city of Uruk, who faces terrifying monsters that threaten his rule. Researchers say this is the story of the first hero in human history, and it was on its template that the epics of Hercules and Achilles were written. This is an epic that has survived to this day because it contains a timeless theme. The underdog theme, the hero, the weak and outnumbered, who triumphs over monsters much bigger than himself. A theme present from the story of David and Goliath through the Lion King all the way to Nasser el-Dasuki. If we delve into the details of this story about the space reptiles, we'll find it's the story of a human facing the Archons, terrifying monsters that control minds through educational curricula and politics, feeding on humans like vampires, especially on the feelings of fear and hatred within them. A plot, my dear, in which it is impossible for humans to win, but if someone believes it, they'll become the underdog, trying to make people see that the truth is there's a big monster exploiting education and politics to deceive your minds. I am the underdog carrying a story of deception, so it's difficult and frightening. And whoever believes it feels in one way or another like a lone hero. And the more you lie to him about it, the more his belief in it grows, because that indicates the theory is correct. He stands before a well-crafted scenario that he might not be able to overcome, but his sense of confidence, superiority, and knowledge knows no bounds. All right, Abu Hamid, we've understood the theory, its followers, and their characteristics. And I promise, if I find someone convinced that reptiles are the ones ruling the world, I'll just let them be. I won't tell them whether that's right or wrong, because that would only make them cling to their cause even more. Let them handle their own problems. All right, Abu Hamid, we can't talk about this topic much longer. Just wrap up the episode and do another one about Messi. My friend, let me ask you a reptilian question. What about the snake? If I asked you what conspiracy theory do you sly one, actually believe in, what do you think it would be? What's going on, Abu Hamid? I mean, I watch you, big shot of glue. Don't believe in that stuff. So, Abu Hamid, are you accusing me of being ignorant? While I'm practically being devoured by toxic doses of awareness. The problem, my friend, is that one of the main traits of conspiracy theory followers I just don't believe in conspiracy theories. Well, Abu Hamid, in that case, any of us could be like that. The truth is, my dear, that we all have a conspiracy theory. What is it, Abu Hamid? So does that mean that any of us could be part of a conspiracy theory? You see, my dear, there's a conspiracy theory that says we're all part of a conspiracy theory, but we don't know that we're part of that same conspiracy. My dear, we're living as if we're between two Barber mirrors in a meta world. Everything and its reflection exists and so on and so forth. In their book, American Conspiracy Theories, Joe Lusinski and his colleague Joe Parent say that conspiracy theories are something all humans have in common. You can't find a person who doesn't believe in at least one or two theories. Abu Humaid, I'm so aware, I'm practically overflowing with consciousness. There's no way an unscientific theory could sneak into my awareness. You're talking to your dear friend Francis Bacon. In his book, Skeptical Minds, Why Do We Believe in Conspiracy Theories? Robert Bradburn says that all of us believe exactly what you're saying, my friend. We're objective, and there's no way we'd easily fall into the trap of these theories. And that's thanks to our minds, which are able to examine information and reach a logical solution. But what if I told you, my friend, that it's actually our own minds that's what deceives us? In his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman says that our mind operates with two systems: the deliberate mind, which analyzes and thinks, and another mind that is impulsive and emotional. According to a paper titled The Role of Cognitive Biases in Conspiracy Beliefs, Lorenzo Gagliardi says that none of us believe we are victims of conspiracy theories because we think that our first mind is always the one at work, that the mind which thinks, studies, and plans is the one that receives information first. When in fact, that's not the case. It's actually the second, emotional, impulsive mind that reacts first and takes over. This leads us to what is called cognitive bias. This impulsive, emotional mind starts to analyze and think, and then, acting as number one, it says, oh, we have an emotion of fear. Let me look for things that prove this topic is actually scary. It starts justifying it, but in a clever way. So what are the reasons? So what are the universal causes? What are the logical reasons? What happened before what? What happened after what then? Man, you should have first solved the information, left it for that, and then come to analyze it after it had already gone through processing. These cognitive biases are like when you love someone and everyone you know tells you she's not right for you. Your father, your mother, your friends, your siblings, Chef Sherbini and Chef Ala El Sherbini, everyone tells you she's not right for you, but you see the 10 flaws she has and focus on just one good thing, that she has a nice personality. She could be a liar, a deceiver, a scammer, a loan shark who lends with interest, and you know all that. But she's kind. You take all of that and latch onto the fact that she's kind. This, my dear, is the most famous bias in history. Confirmation bias, the one everyone talks about to convince others that they're biased toward things that confirm their own opinions. You look for whatever confirms your point of view, regardless of anything else. There's also another bias called the bandwagon effect, when you do something just because everyone else is doing it blindly, like choosing clothes without thinking. Abu Hamid says the mind is an ornament, so why does it act this way? Why does it fall into these biases? Why doesn't it think carefully using the first system of analysis, reasoning, and planning? The truth is, my friend, your mind is protecting you. These biases for the brain aren't mistakes. They're effective mental shortcuts. Instead of the brain spending time dealing with and analyzing a lot of information, it can save time and do this for you. Why should the brain use its processing power and brain power to think about every single thing that comes its way? That way, you'd waste time, even if you're not studying properly. For example, I want to get to know girls. So instead of spending time looking up studies about what I should wear and how I should style my hair and what my body fat percentage should be, I just say a red suit attracts girls just like the color red attracts bulls. It's a bit of a silly mental shortcut, but you get the point. Let me tell you, my dear, a misconception that some people have: think red provokes bulls? False. The cape's movement is what actually provokes them. If you waved a yellow flag, it would charge at it too. So you might think that the bull attacks the matador because the cape is red, like the color of blood and all that. So I want to get into this. And just like sometimes this can be useful for you. Like, for example, when you see the majority going in a certain direction, so you follow them and your chances of survival increase. But also a lot of times it's often not the right thing. If you don't make a quick decision and instead hesitate, think, and reflect, that might actually be what saves you. True, sometimes being slow it could be the reason you get hit by a car or eaten by a lion, but sometimes it's actually good. So in short, following the crowd has its pros and cons, and against it, just like most things in the Tahya program. But since we're now talking about conspiracy theories, let's focus more on the negatives, not the positives. Like, for example, on the day of the assassination of US President John Kennedy in 1963, the assassination of President John Kennedy drew attention. And while reviewing the photos to identify the person who carried out the operation, he would notice that just before the assassination, there was a person named Louis Stephen Witt opening his umbrella. So, my dear, what's the story with this guy opening his umbrella? This umbrella, my dear, gave rise to one of the most famous conspiracy theories. They called him the Umbrella Man. This theory claims that opening the umbrella was a signal, that opening this umbrella was not an innocent act. It wasn't just someone trying to protect himself from the sun or the rain. No, it was a signal to say, go ahead, shoot now. It was the signal the sniper was waiting for. And as a result, President Kennedy was killed. It was a big conspiracy with planning and people involved. Not just a former Marine with a gun and psychological issues. That's too basic. And even though this umbrella man appeared in the media many times to insist, guys, honestly, it was just that the sun was a bit harsh on me. I opened the umbrella by coincidence, I swear, just a random passerby. But no, you're the one who gave us that signal, my dear. This is a fallacy we call the conjunction fallacy, assuming that two events happening at the same time, each separate from the other, must have a cause and effect relationship between them. This fallacy is one of the main pillars of conspiracy theories, events that have nothing to do with each other, but we create a scenario that puts these two together. A study by Brother Tan and French on a sample that was exposed to logical fallacies, specifically the suggestion fallacy, and was presented with results that implied a conspiracy theory. 77% of the sample fell for this fallacy. Imagine, my friend, we're talking about 80% of people. Can you imagine how our minds can deceive us? Another well-known fallacy is called proportionality bias, which is the assumption that any massive, powerful outcome must have been caused by an event just as big. For example, there's no such thing as COVID or a pandemic sweeping the world. It couldn't have been just a mutated virus that caused all this. There has to be a big story behind it all. In a 2012 experiment by Rupe and Norton, they presented two groups of participants with a scenario about Kennedy's assassination. The first group was given information about Kennedy's death, but it was linked to frightening consequences that happened afterward, such as the continuation of the Vietnam War and the deaths of 40,000 people, for example. While the second group was simply told that Kennedy died normally, a disturbed man shot him. The result was that the first group was more likely to believe that Kennedy's death was a major conspiracy. These biases don't just make the mind believe in conspiracy theories that would normally be hard to believe. They also create what Lorenzo calls belief updating, which is the mind's continued belief in this type of theory. And instead of our mind trying to refute, analyze, and see how these could be wrong, we find that it actually clings to them even more. And as a result, it becomes more susceptible to believing in even more conspiracy theories. One of the well-known biases is called the availability bias. This is the mind's bias to believe information simply because it has been repeated in front of it many times. According to a 2008 study, the most important bias that keeps our belief in conspiracy theories updated is our exposure to many conspiracy theories, or repeatedly being exposed to a particular conspiracy theory more than once. The study I'm telling you about divided the participants into two groups. The first group was shown a conspiracy theory about the death of Princess Diana, while the second group was not shown any conspiracy theory explaining Princess Diana's death. Of course, the first group was more likely to believe it. Come on, Abu Ahmed, you might say. And religion, and we kill people and all that. Why? For example, if you asked my grandmother, she'd tell you that nagging in your ear is worse than magic. No, my dear, the problem is that what distinguishes this era from our grandmother's time is that the 21st century is the age of conspiracy, the era of conspiracy theories. Not necessarily because conspiracies have increased, but because we're exposed to conspiracy scenarios much more often. This is where that confirmation bias kicks in, making conspiracy theories readily available as you're constantly exposed to them. Conspiracy theories. So you end up believing that there really is a conspiracy theory, and then after that, anything you see in the world, you try to confirm your belief in the conspiracy theory, and you just stay stuck in a loop. So at first, because the conspiracy theory is so prevalent, you start to believe it. And not only do you start to believe it, you even start looking for evidence to support it. That's the confirmation bias. My dear friend, your mind is supposed to work by finding evidence and then believing the theory. But what's happening now is that you believe the theory first, and then you go looking for evidence to support it. Abu Humaid, since we all have confirmation biases, why aren't we all believers in every conspiracy theory? My dear, as soon as everyone believes in a conspiracy theory, it stops being a conspiracy theory. Because, my dear, even though our biases are deeply rooted in our minds, we still have cultural or environmental differences among us, as well as varying levels of intelligence from one person to another. For example, if two people see a black cat in the morning, one of them might fall into the fallacy of association and link it to bad luck. While the other, as soon as his mind suggests that idea, will find that his cultural background reassures him that this isn't true, or in a less superstitious environment, he'll reject such notions. Abu Hamid, let believers believe and others not. If one fears the black cat, that's their choice. If someone wants to believe in alien reptiles, that's their choice. If they think COVID is a conspiracy, let them. Why are you so concerned about this issue? Just let our minds wander as they please, man. My dear, I don't want to call you reckless, but you've developed a rather high level of tolerance, and that seems dangerous for you. No, that's not going to work. That's the end of the discussion, thank you. What impact does this have on society? The real problem, my dear, happens when this issue starts to creep into scientific circles or when it begins to have a medical impact on societies. At that point, my dear, a conspiracy theory can kill. Let me tell you about the theory of the English doctor Andrew Wakefield. This man held a press conference in 1998 in England to warn the world about the MMR vaccine. That's a vaccine against rabies, measles, and mumps. Measles is al-Hasba. This man claimed the vaccine would cause autism. But isn't it true, Abu Hamid, that it causes autism? Abu Hamid, please, you just made a disrespectful face. Could you show some respect for other people's opinions? Other people's opinions? My dear, what are you talking about? This is a disaster. This statement will shake the world, and famous impulsive people like you will believe it. Jim Carrey himself, my dear, will believe it. And organizations will emerge against vaccinating children and people in general. And this Wakefield will be labeled the godfather of the anti-vaccination movement, the anti-vaxxers. Anti-vaxxers? This statement will cause the vaccination rate in a country like England to drop by 80%. Can you imagine, my dear, to the extent that there will be a massive outbreak of measles all over Britain with 16,000 cases recorded? Even though since 1994 the vaccine had almost succeeded in eradicating measles. It was as if we had completely eliminated the disease and handed it over. But then, in 2006, the first case was recorded in England of a 13-year-old teenager dying from measles. And in 2008, measles was declared an endemic disease throughout England. Can you imagine, my dear, that this happened in the country of Newton, Michael Faraday, and David Beckham? We're not, my dear, talking about a tropical republic in the 18th century. With all due respect to 18th century republics and tropical republics, the plot twist, my dear. And in reality, it's not really much of a plot twist that in 2004, an investigative journalist named Brian Deere would publish evidence that Dr. Wakefield, before his research on the harms of the MMR vaccine for measles, was actually working on a competing alternative study. The best alternative competitor to this vaccine. Isn't this, Abu Hamid, what they call a conflict of interest? I wish, my dear, it was just a conflict of interest. It's said that the man even took a bribe. A bribe, Abu Hamid. Isn't bribery forbidden or what? Yes, my dear, £500,000 sterling he took from a law firm that was supporting that competing research. The company itself is the one that brought him the parents who already suspected that this vaccine caused autism in their children. And don't even ask me about the integrity and impartiality of the scientific research. Nice one, Abu Hamid. The truth is, my dear, that this was the least of what Wakefield did. Because the investigation revealed that he was also manipulating the children's medical histories to make it seem like they were negatively affected by the vaccine, and he recorded research results that were at the very least inaccurate, even if they weren't outright fabricated. This investigation led to the retraction of Wakefield's research paper, which he had based his famous statements on. And his license to practice medicine was also revoked entirely in England. Thousands of patients, some of whom died, could have been with us today if it weren't for this lie and this conspiracy and people believing in it. You might expect, my dear viewer, that after 2004, the whole world knew the truth and this man was exposed. But the truth is, do you know when the article that describes him as the godfather of the anti-vaccination movements was published? In 2016, despite all the deaths, the terrifying numbers, the doctors who spoke out, the paper that was retracted, and even the man himself coming out and saying, guys, what I said was wrong, there are still millions of people convinced that vaccines are dangerous and part of a conspiracy against humanity. Some are even convinced that Wakefield was punished because he exposed this conspiracy and was forced to apologize. At this point, my friend, the conspiracy theory has become entirely owned by the public. The person who started it no longer has any influence over it, as if it has become a living being or a separate entity with its own independent life. People keep adding things to it and taking things away, adding and removing details over and over again. Here it is, it might survive, even if it's scientifically proven that it can kill. The truth is, my dear, so I don't wrong you or the believers in conspiracy theories, of which I am one, by the way. But I won't say which theory I believe in. Let me tell you that even science tells us things that are hard or even impossible to believe. For example, what's the difference between alien reptiles and quantum mechanics? Quantum mechanics tells you that something can exist in two places at the same time. Simply put, actually, it can exist everywhere at once and only settles in one place when you look at it. Wow, the electron is playing hide and seek. The truth is, my dear, I'm the one who asked that question on your behalf. And I'd like to say that my question is a valid one. I'll try to answer it myself. I won't give a scientific answer, but rather an answer from the philosophy of science. My hero, I'll talk about my hero. My hero, the philosopher Karl Popper, author of The Logic of Scientific Discovery and personal friend of Mr. Shady Abdel Hafiz. As for Karl Popper, he says that if there is one thing that distinguishes scientific life from superstitions and conspiracy theories and experts, the difference is that scientific truth is measurable and falsifiable. That means a scientific theory is a theory where we don't ask how it's right. No, we ask how it could be wrong, so we try to prove it wrong. So when we find out, we say, wow, this seems solid. We'll think of another way. We try to prove it wrong again, so we keep trying to disprove it. But look, it just can't be disproved like that. One scientist once said, the problem with your theory is that it's not right, it's not even wrong, it's just not. You're presenting me with a theory that I can't find any evidence against. I can't falsify it. I can't conduct an experiment that would disprove it or measure its effect. For example, conspiracy theorists try to gather evidence around their theory to confirm it. They don't test it. They don't even consider the things that go against it. They only collect what supports it. Whereas the first thing a scientist does when testing their theory is to try to find evidence that disproves it. My dear, any scientific proposition must have a way for me to question it. Otherwise, it's not scientific. It has to be falsifiable. There must be a way for collecting things to confirm the theory I'll never finish. Not only that, my dear, a scientific fact must be reproducible, meaning the result I see once, I should be able to see again, a second, third, fourth, and fifth time. And here, my dear, it becomes what we call a law. For example, the law of buoyancy that was established in Archimedes' time has produced the same results before Archimedes and up to today. Now, my dear, it's called a scientific fact that can always be tested to make predictions about the future. Then comes a moment in the future when we say, what's this? That prediction we expected turned out to be correct. What's this? I can change it and see how much it could be wrong. All right? What's this? It gives me the same results every time, just as I expect. But something that I can't test or repeat its results? How can I prove whether Trump is a reptilian alien or not? What even is a reptilian alien? What does it look like? Where does it come from? When someone tells you the earth is flat or round, don't just focus on the evidence provided. What you should actually focus on is the logic that each of them presents. One of the two presents it, and you push it in every direction to see whether it will withstand the standard scientific tests or not. So basically, my dear, listen to this and focus on it. Science is something we try to disprove. It's what we can't manage to disprove. That's why scientific papers take pride in having gone through the peer review process. That we presented our scientific discovery, then scientists from everywhere came in with knives, machetes, and clubs trying to find a flaw in this theory. They couldn't. At that moment, the paper gets published and becomes part of the scientific heritage, a heritage that can be challenged at any time. But until that happens, we acknowledge it. In the end, my friend, conspiracy theories are attractive, enchanting, entertaining, and sprinkled with magic. While science is boring, exhausting, slow, and cold, and it never promises you that it will definitely find an explanation. And even if it does, it might not be the explanation you want. And if it is the explanation you want, it probably won't be exciting enough to spread among people. Because science is concerned with only one thing, trying to find the truth, even if it's unsettling. It won't be entertaining enough to spread among people because science is concerned with only one thing, trying to find the truth, even if it's unsettling, even if it's frightening. Or as the American writer Catherine Norris put it, conspiracy theories are the refuge of those who have lost their curiosity and their ability to adapt. That's why, my dear, science is when our curiosity outweighs our fear. And its strength lies in the fact that it doesn't trust your mind. It sets up 1,000 tests to prove its validity. If it fails these tests, it's not science. Finally, remember to watch past and future episodes. Check out the sources. If we're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Here, my dear, I want to emphasize and make sure, please don't get carried away by anything that isn't scientific, or by anything that just makes predictions by chance like that, or by anything that might involve conspiracy theories, except for the hot and cold balls in the Champions League draw.